When you think of Washington State, you picture coffee shops and rain. But behind the evergreen trees lies a ruthless tech and industrial oligarchy. Washington is the cloud computing capital of the world, home to dynasties that own the software on your computer, the shipping trucks on your highways, and the literal earth beneath your feet. Today, we count down the 12 richest families in Washington State. From the old money timber barons to the new lords of artificial intelligence, this is how the Pacific Northwest really does business. Number 12. The Weyerhaeuser Family, the Timber Kings. To understand Washington wealth, you have to start with the dirt. Frederick Weyerhaeuser didn't write code. He bought trees. In 1900, he executed one of the largest private land transactions in American history, purchasing 900,000 acres of timberland in the Pacific Northwest from railroad tycoon James J. Hill. That single transaction laid the bedrock for a century of environmental dominance. The Weyerhaeuser family built a massive, globally scaled logging empire, supplying the physical wood that literally built the expanding American suburbs post-World War II. They monopolized the lumber yards. Trees are a volatile commodity subject to forest fires and housing market crashes, but land is immortal. The family protected their wealth by transitioning the massive corporation into a real estate investment trust, REIT. They don't just chop down trees, they manage millions of acres of real estate, generating completely tax-advantaged cash flow while leasing land for everything from cellular towers to wind farms. They realized that the physical land under the trees was often vastly more valuable than the wood itself. By controlling the vast, endless tracts of the American wilderness, they essentially created a private national park system that pays them infinite dividends. They dictate the environmental supply chain from the soil up. The public views Weyerhaeuser as a simple blue-collar lumber company. In reality, they are one of the largest private landowners on Earth. They prove that true, intergenerational wealth isn't built on the final product you sell. It is built on the absolute monopoly of the natural resources required to make it. Number 11. The Piggott Family, the Freight Lords. If you drive on any highway in America, you are sharing the road with the Piggott family. William Piggott started the Seattle Car Manufacturing Company in 1905, building railway cars for the logging industry. But the family's true wealth exploded when they transitioned into heavy-duty trucks, founding PACCAR. Today, they are the invisible giants behind the legendary Kenworth and Peterbilt truck brands, creating the absolute backbone of American logistics. The Piggott family protected their wealth by aggressively refusing to build consumer vehicles. Selling cars to the public is a brutal, low-margin business driven by fickle trends and massive marketing budgets. Selling massive, custom-built industrial rigs to corporate logistics fleets is a high-margin, sticky, business-to-business monopoly. When a shipping fleet uses Peterbilt, they don't switch. PACCAR didn't just build the trucks, they built PACCAR Financial. They realized that corporations didn't always have the cash to buy a massive fleet of $150,000 semi-trucks up front, so the Piggott family became the bank. They financed the sales, collecting massive recurring interest payments on top of the manufacturing profit. They capture the profit on both the metal and the money. People assume that tech companies run the modern supply chain. But an Amazon Prime package doesn't move through the cloud. It physically moves in a Peterbilt. With a family fortune in the billions, the Piggotts are the physical landlords of global logistics. They operate in total silence, proving that the deepest wealth is found in the unglamorous, heavy machinery that keeps capitalism moving. Number 10. The Nordstrom Family, the Retail Royalty. In a world where physical retail is dying a brutal death, the Nordstrom dynasty survives through absolute, unyielding psychological control over the upper class. John W. Nordstrom arrived in America from Sweden with $5 in his pocket. He struck it rich in the Klondike Gold Rush, taking his $13,000 in gold dust and opening a shoe store in Seattle in 1901. His descendants took that single storefront and engineered a high-end department store empire that defined luxury shopping in the 20th century. While competitors like Sears and Macy's were hollowed out by private equity vultures, the Nordstrom family protected their empire by fiercely holding on to the voting shares of their publicly traded company. They maintained a dual-class stock structure, ensuring that Wall Street activists could never force them to compromise their brand integrity for short-term profits. When the 2008 financial crash decimated luxury spending, the Nordstrom family didn't panic. They aggressively expanded their off-price division, Nordstrom Rack, capturing the aspirational middle class while simultaneously pushing their flagship stores further into ultra-luxury. They recently attempted to take the massive company completely private to shield it entirely from public market scrutiny, a flex of absolute dynastic control. The public thinks Nordstrom sells clothes. They don't. They sell customer service and frictionless convenience. Their legendary return policy and personal styling services created a cult-like loyalty. They realized decades ago that true luxury isn't a designer label. It is the feeling of being catered to. The Nordstrom family monetized the ego of the American consumer, building a multi-billion-dollar fortune on the art of making people feel important. Number 9. The Senegal and Brotman families, the bulk barons. You might not know their names, but if you have a massive pack of toilet paper in your garage, you are paying their tax. Jim Senegal and Jeffrey Brotman founded Costco in Seattle in 1983. They didn't invent the warehouse club model, but they perfected it with terrifying mathematical efficiency. They capped their profit margins on physical goods at a strict 14%, severely undercutting every major retailer in the world, including Walmart. The absolute secret to the Costco fortune is the membership card. They protect their cash flow by not actually making their money from selling groceries. They sell the goods at near break-even prices and extract their billions entirely from the annual subscription fee. It is a completely insulated, guaranteed revenue stream that boasts a massive, near-perfect 90% renewal rate globally. The ultimate psychological weapon of this empire is the $1.50 hot dog and soda combo. Senegal famously threatened his executives if they ever raised the price. It is a loss leader that operates as a brilliantly manipulative marketing tool, forcing customers to walk past high-margin flat-screen TVs and diamond rings just to get a cheap lunch. It conditions the consumer to feel like they are always winning. Costco is not a grocery store. It is an exclusive, closed-loop consumer club. The Senegal and Brotman families prove that if you provide undeniable value, the American public will gladly pay a recurring tax just for the privilege of walking through your front door. They turned the mundane act of buying bulk mayonnaise into a multi-billion-dollar psychological masterpiece. Number 8. The McCaw family, the cellular pioneers. Long before the iPhone existed, there was a family in Seattle who realized that the future of human communication would be entirely invisible. Craig McCaw inherited a small, heavily indebted cable television business from his father. But Craig saw a different future. In the 1980s, when cell phones were the size of bricks and considered a clunky toy for the ultra-rich, McCaw began frantically buying up cellular spectrum licenses from the government. He founded McCaw Cellular and built the first truly national cellular network in America. He protected his wealth through absolute, brazen financial leverage. He borrowed billions of dollars, taking on terrifying amounts of debt, to buy the invisible radio frequencies that make wireless communication possible. Once he cornered the market on the spectrum, he had an unbreakable monopoly that competitors couldn't replicate because the government wasn't making any more frequencies. In 1994, McCaw executed the ultimate exit strategy. He sold McCaw Cellular to AT&T for an astronomical $11.5 billion. It made him a billionaire overnight, but he didn't stop there. He took his liquid capital and built Nextel, Clearwire, and Teledesic, consistently pioneering the next generation of wireless tech and backing early satellite internet constellations long before Elon Musk's Starlink. McCaw didn't invent the cell phone. He didn't build the hardware or write the software. He realized that the device itself is entirely useless without the invisible highway it transmits on. The McCaw family bought the digital real estate of the sky before anyone else knew it existed. They are the original lords of the spectrum, proving that the greatest fortunes are built on assets you cannot even see. Number 7. The Stanton family, the baseball and broadband syndicate. If Craig McCaw was the visionary, John Stanton was the ruthless operational architect who built the modern wireless world into an inescapable grid. John Stanton served as Craig McCaw's top deputy and operational genius. But Stanton wanted his own empire. He broke off and founded Western Wireless and later VoiceStream Wireless. He took a regional telecom player and scaled it with brutal efficiency, eventually selling VoiceStream to Deutsche Telekom for a staggering $39 billion. That company eventually morphed into T-Mobile US. Stanton protected his massive liquid payout by founding Trilogy Partnerships, a private equity and venture capital firm that aggressively controls the next generation of tech startups. He didn't just sit on his cash. He built a financial fortress that ensures his family is heavily invested in whatever replaces the smartphone, diversifying his risk across dozens of emerging technologies. The ultimate power move for any billionaire is transitioning from corporate boardrooms to civic godhood. Stanton organized a syndicate of local elite investors to buy the Seattle Mariners, keeping the Major League Baseball team in the city and becoming its chairman and managing partner. He anchored his legacy in the cultural bedrock of the state. The public sees a telecom billionaire who bought a baseball team out of civic pride. What they misunderstand is the sheer financial leverage of live sports. By owning the Mariners, Stanton also secured a massive ownership stake in Root Sports Northwest, the regional broadcast network. He didn't just buy a baseball team. He bought a live content monopoly that guarantees millions of hours of captive viewership, perfectly complementing his decades of experience in media and telecom. Number 6. The Newell family, the digital warlords. In the rainy suburbs of Bellevue, a former Microsoft employee built a digital empire that taxes the entire global gaming industry without mercy. Gabe Newell was one of the original creators of the Windows operating system, earning millions as an early Microsoft employee. But he left the safety of the corporate behemoth in 1996 to found Valve Corporation. Initially, they made legendary video games like Half-Life. But their true wealth exploded when they built Steam, the ultimate digital storefront for PC games. Newell protected his empire by violently rejecting Wall Street. Valve is 100% privately owned. Newell answers to no public shareholders, no board of directors, and issues no quarterly earnings reports. This extreme secrecy allows him to operate with absolute dictatorial control over his platform, entirely immune to the stock market crashes that wipe out his publicly traded competitors. Valve's absolute power move is the 30% tax. By making Steam the unavoidable standard for downloading PC games, Newell established a digital monopoly. Every time a third-party developer sells a game on Steam, Valve takes a massive 30% cut. They generate billions of dollars in pure profit without having to write a single line of code for those games, effectively operating as a digital toll booth. The gaming community views Gabe Newell as a benevolent creator and a meme icon. In reality, he is the ruthless operator of a digital cartel. He realized that creating games is a high-risk, expensive gamble. Owning the store that sells the games is a guaranteed infinite cash machine. With a personal net worth nearing $10 billion, Newell proves that true digital power belongs to the platform, not the product. Number 5. The Schultz family, the caffeine cartel. You think he sells coffee? In reality, he runs one of the most sophisticated, unregulated banks on the planet. Howard Schultz grew up in a housing project in Brooklyn. He visited Seattle, discovered a small coffee bean roaster called Starbucks, and eventually bought the company. He didn't just scale a business, he scaled an addiction. He transformed Starbucks into the third place between work and home, turning a 50-cent commodity into a $5 daily luxury that consumers felt they desperately needed. Schultz protected his empire through aggressive, relentless real estate saturation. He didn't just open stores, he opened them on opposite corners of the very same intersection to ruthlessly crush independent competition. He built a supply chain so massive and complex that no competitor could possibly source, roast, and distribute beans at his volume, effectively pricing out any legitimate threat to his throne. The absolute masterpiece of the Schultz empire is the Starbucks mobile app. Customers load cash onto their digital Starbucks cards to earn rewards. At any given moment, Starbucks holds over $1.5 billion in unspent customer funds. It is an interest-free loan from the public. Starbucks is effectively functioning as a massive, unregulated fiat bank that pays its depositors in frappuccinos instead of interest. With a family fortune of over $3 billion, Howard Schultz isn't a barista. He is a real estate and fintech baron. He recognized that coffee is a legal, addictive substance that guarantees daily recurring revenue. He utilized that daily habit to build a global physical and digital infrastructure that extracts capital from the middle class with terrifying efficiency. Number 4. The Weyerhaeuser Family, the code architect. While the world worships the charismatic founders of tech giants, the true generational wealth is often held by the silent architects operating in the back room. Charles Simonyi is a Hungarian-born programmer who joined Microsoft in 1981. He didn't build the operating system. He built the tools that businesses actually use. Simonyi was the chief architect behind Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel. He created the very software that the entire corporate world relies on to function, inventing the WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get, interface. As one of Microsoft's earliest and highest-ranking employees, Simonyi was compensated with massive amounts of stock options. He protected his wealth by holding onto that equity as Microsoft violently monopolized the enterprise software market throughout the 90s, riding the wave of the desktop computing revolution to unimaginable wealth. When you build the software that rules the world, you eventually want to leave the world behind. Simonyi's ultimate power move was space travel. He didn't build his own rocket, he simply bought a ticket. He paid tens of millions of dollars to fly to the International Space Station, not once, but twice. He became the first repeat space tourist in human history, treating low Earth orbit like a luxury vacation. The public thinks Bill Gates built everything at Microsoft. Charles Simonyi proves that the ultimate wealth in Silicon Valley goes to the men who build the indispensable tools. Word and Excel are not just programs, they are the fundamental language of global commerce. With a fortune exceeding $7 billion, Simonyi proves that if you design the spreadsheet, you own the economy. Number 3. The Allen Dynasty, the Vulcan Empire. He was the co-founder of Microsoft, but his legacy evolved into a physical monopoly over the very city that birthed his empire. Paul Allen co-founded Microsoft with Bill Gates, securing a massive multi-billion-dollar equity stake before leaving the company in the 1980s. When he passed away in 2018, his sister, Jody Allen, took the reins as the executor of his sprawling estate, managing an empire that dictates the culture and geography of the Pacific Northwest. The Allen wealth was protected by Vulcan Inc., a massive holding company that systematically diversified his tech billions into hard, physical assets. He bought real estate, professional sports teams, and massive art collections, ensuring that even if the software market crashed, his empire was heavily anchored in untouchable concrete and steel. Paul Allen executed a masterclass in urban monopolization. He quietly bought up massive, dilapidated tracts of land in Seattle's South Lake Union District. He then redeveloped the entire neighborhood and became the primary landlord for Amazon's massive global headquarters. He used his Microsoft money to build the buildings that housed Jeff Bezos' empire, collecting rent from his biggest rival. The Allen estate isn't just a charitable trust, it is a civic leviathan. By owning the Seattle Seahawks and the Portland Trail Blazers, Jody Allen controls the emotional heartbeat of the region. The Allen dynasty proves that the ultimate tech power move is taking your digital wealth and buying the physical city where your competitors live, effectively becoming the landlord of the tech boom. Number 2. The Ballmer Family, the loudest billionaire. He wasn't a founder. He didn't write code. He simply executed the greatest employment negotiation in the history of capitalism. Steve Ballmer joined Microsoft in 1980 as employee number 30. He was hired by his Harvard classmate Bill Gates to manage the chaotic business operations. Ballmer demanded an insane compensation package, a massive base salary plus a percentage of the profit growth he generated. He eventually secured a staggering 8% equity stake in the company. Ballmer protected his wealth through absolute diamond-handed discipline. When he stepped down as CEO of Microsoft in 2014, he didn't liquidate his shares. He held them. Today, Steve Ballmer owns more shares of Microsoft than Bill Gates himself. He collects roughly $1 billion a year in sheer cash dividends without having to attend a single board meeting or answer a single email. Armed with infinite liquidity, Ballmer dropped $2 billion in cold, hard cash to buy the Los Angeles Clippers in 2014. It was the highest price ever paid for an NBA team at the time. He then spent another $2 billion of his own money to build the Intuit Dome, a technological marvel of a stadium, entirely privately financed to aggressively clip the Lakers' market share. The public views Ballmer as a sweaty, screaming hype man. In reality, he is a ruthless, hyper-intelligent corporate warlord. With a net worth hovering around $140 billion, Ballmer proves that you don't need to invent the product. If you are the ultimate salesman and the fiercest negotiator in the room, you can eventually buy out the founders and become the richest employee on Earth. Number 1. The Gates family, the Landlords of America. The richest family in Washington state no longer cares about computer software. They have transcended technology and are quietly buying the fundamental infrastructure of human survival. Bill Gates co-founded Microsoft and brutally monopolized the personal computer operating system market in the 1980s and 90s. He ruthlessly crushed competitors, built an inescapable digital ecosystem, and became the richest man in the world for decades. The true genius of the Gates fortune is Cascade Investment, the highly secretive holding company managed by Michael Larson. Larson took Gates's Microsoft billions and systematically moved them into bulletproof physical assets. He insulated the family from the volatility of tech by buying railroads, waste management companies like Republic Services, and massive stakes in luxury brands like the Four Seasons hotels. Over the past decade, the Gates entity has executed a terrifyingly quiet land grab. Despite his highly publicized divorce from Melinda, which split portions of the fortune, Bill Gates remains the largest private owner of farmland in the United States. He controls nearly 275,000 acres of prime agricultural dirt across dozens of states, effectively cornering the market on the American food supply. The public views Bill Gates entirely through the lens of global philanthropy, vaccines, and public health. But look at his asset sheet. He owns the trains that move the freight. He owns the garbage trucks that clear the waste. He owns the hotels where the elite sleep. And he owns the literal soil that grows the food. With a family net worth well over $130 billion, the Gates dynasty has evolved from Silicon Valley tech nerds into modern feudal lords. They don't just own the software that runs your computer, they own the physical grid that sustains your life. Washington state is a land of extremes. From silent timber barons to tech monopolists, these families prove true wealth is about absolute leverage. They control the coffee you drink, the games you play, and the digital infrastructure that runs the world. Which of these dynasties holds the most absolute power? The old industrial giants or the new tech gods? Let me know down below. If you want to understand who really runs the world, like and subscribe to Global Status. We track the money.